Evan, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Jim. How are you?
I am living the dream. Thanks for joining me today. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing and how you help your clients.
Yeah, so since the last time we talked, a lot of things have changed for me.
Mm.
I have Andrew's Media. I still make content for people, kind of shifting my mechanism and my offer around a little bit more these days to I'm focusing a little bit more on podcasting.
Yeah.
My wife and I have been podcasting for about the last 9 months or so. And I think I've got this thing kind of down to a science for people that might be business owners, but don't necessarily want to be podcasters, but also don't have a ton of time to create an exorbitant amount of content that they need to kind of stay busy and relevant online. So I'm kind of taking the blueprint that I've done over the last 9 months, where my wife and I, just on our YouTube channel alone, we get, anywhere from about 20 to 30,000 views each and every month. And I'm kind of trying to replicate that and be able to help, business owners out there. But I also have in the last couple of months, I've started implementing and creating my own coaching program. That is specifically tailored towards my past self, and my past self being a videographer that, went kind of from this freelance mentality to an actual business owner, and just trying to help people get to their first kind of five-figure months and be able to grow and sustain growth in the right way. And that's kind of what I've been up to lately.
Now, it's very similar to what I do. You and I have our respective clients. I call them members at Check a Pro, and they're home service oriented. And I love the technology today. We've got video and we've got podcasting. And you and I have both found a great way to help our clients or members to merge those two items and give our clients a vehicle that's
Hmm.
unique from their competition. I still say most small business owners are not taking full advantage of video and certainly not podcasting. Wouldn't you agree?
No, 100%. I think a lot of business owners, whether you have a small business and you got a team of four or two, or you got a team of 10 or 50, right? Uh, they they try to mimic what they see other people doing. And most of the time they're mimicking the wrong things, right? And that is inevitably what gets no results for them. And they then give up on doing it because they thought that it wasn't advantageous for them. But that's when hiring somebody either like myself or you might be the solution that they look for there. Even if it's just from a consulting aspect of like, hey, what should I do? Right. But yeah, I just see a lot of people try and do and fail and think that it doesn't work when it does. It just, you have to know what to look for.
So I'll tell you what it's like. It's like it's January 1st, and I've decided to get in shape. So I'm going to eat better, sleep better, and go work out. Well, that's all kind of nice. So I tell my wife that. Now what? So the best thing to do is hire a nutritionist, read books about sleep, maybe go to some, I don't know, courses on it, and then also go to the gym and say, who's your best trainer for a guy like me?
Yeah.
And then invest in it and have them bug you. It's time to come to the gym. It's time to go over your nutrition. It's time to go over your sleep process.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have accountability with someone, it probably won't get done. And that's where you and I come in, because when people sign up with us, they can plug into what we do all day long for our clients over and
Yeah.
over again. We know the secrets, but I'll tell you, one of the top things I hear from people is I don't have enough time to do video content and also to do a podcast. I'm going to go a step further. Not only do they think they don't have time, which isn't true, they don't know where to start. They don't know what equipment to use. They don't know
Yeah.
anything about podcasting. And in reality, here you and I are doing this recording. It's easy for us, and it's going to be blasted out within hours after we're done with this conversation today, all over the universe, on social media and on podcast platforms. And my point is, everybody, it doesn't take long. Okay. Someone like Evan or me can help you by recording with you. Now, you do it in your studio primarily, don't you?
Yeah, I have a studio that actually helps my wife and I fulfill on it just because I don't have all of the equipment that I would need from my video production business.
Hmm.
You need for like a two-person setup, for example, you need at least three cameras in a dedicated
Yeah.
space because you have to have dedicated cameras and then a wide for like the big angle. I don't have three cameras, I only have two, so that's why I had to bring in some help. But I like it too because I don't have my own studio space. Like I work out of my home, right? So it prevents me from having to set up and break down and set up and break down. I can rely on somebody else to help me with that. Just like as you were mentioning, somebody else out there could rely on people like us to be able to do and help them through the process as well. So, even somebody out there that might need me, they're also going to get other systems and tools, i.e., my crew, my team, to be able to help them create, their high quality video podcasts as well.
Yeah, and high quality video is important, but then again, don't get caught up on that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I
Anyone who's
mean,
watching this who says, I don't want to invest anything more than I already have with my iPhone, then fine, start with your iPhone
yeah,
and start taking some video of yourself. You might want to get a tripod, maybe a ring light,
yeah,
maybe a microphone for it, and clip it on, a
100%.
wireless one. And that doesn't cost
100%.
much money, and you can start experimenting. I recommend, though, working with someone who's like a coach. Now, you actually do coach. I guess I could be considered a coach. I consider myself a facilitator for sure. And so
Sure.
what I do, which is a little different than you, is I use Zoom because I've got clients all over the country, contractors, plumbers,
Right.
electricians, HVAC, roofers in the home service space. And all I have to do is hop on a Zoom call 45 minutes every 2 months to record content. And we do all the rest for their social media, their SEO, all that content. We chop it up and place it for them so they can go back to turning wrenches because that's what they do. And
Yeah.
they really should never be as good as you and I, just like I'm not going to be replacing my own water heater or HVAC system.
That's 100% true. But to your point, yeah, like it doesn't have to be a super high quality production. My wife's best friend, she runs a podcast with a friend of hers. They both are married to like high school football coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this podcast where they get together and they talk about what that life kind of looks like. They do it over Zoom. Like
Sure.
it's a feasible, application. And there's a ton of other applications out there too, not just Zoom, but I mean, Zoom is a free option that you can use and create for yourself. I think people just overcomplicate it by getting in their head, thinking that it needs to be a certain thing. And what I tell a lot of people, if they are going that more DIY route from the beginning, you can't expect it to look like a Steven Spielberg production.
But
You
it
don't
doesn't
have
have to
10
be.
years, 15 years, 20 years experience in using certain kinds of equipment. So it's just like you can't have those high expectations for yourself, or that's what prevents a lot of people from just even starting in the first place.
Well, I agree with you. And I'll tell you something. Probably close to 30 years ago now, more like 25 years ago, reality TV came in.
Yeah.
And it came in kind of slow and then it got pretty aggressive. The cameras they used, and I'm sure they're doing the same thing, is a small camera in the corner of a bedroom, corner
Yeah.
of a kitchen, in the
Yeah.
garage where they're literally getting whatever video they can, and it's meant to look rough. And it
Hmm.
is rough because it's reality. Well, that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, this is reality. So don't put makeup on. You know, if your fingernails are dirty, that's fine because you're the plumber. And the homeowner
Right.
wants to hear the authenticity because they
100%.
want to know whether or not they're going to hire you. And so don't be something you're not, because when you show up and your fingernails are dirty, but you just got them buffed as a petty or a manny, that's not good, right? So be your authentic self
Yeah.
on the video. And that's why you can get away with using your phone or Zoom. But I do like what you do as well because you bring it to a higher level. And if they want that, then they need to go to you.
100%. Yeah. No, I mean it's something, obviously with me having the experience that I do in production,
Mhm.
right? It's a level of service that I want to be able to offer someone. Obviously, too, like I go after more of high ticket clientele,
Mm,
right? Like people that I work with, they probably sell something at least $1,000 or more on to any given customer,
sure.
right? Because if I can start bringing them leads through the content that I'm doing, and I give them one client, 2 clients. They've paid back their investment with me and made a little bit of scratch. And then, hey, if I just need to get them 2 or 3 more to make it, a 3 or 4x ROI, I mean, that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. A lot of people don't understand this. So I want you to listen up carefully, all of you who are small business owners out there. The video content that Ev and I are talking about, the places that we put that for you, don't necessarily have to be this ROI from the lead that I got. Understand that the content itself is different than what your competition is doing, because I guarantee you, your competition for the most part isn't even close to what we're talking about. They're not doing
Right.
any videos like this, and they're not putting it in the right places. So even if you just use the video content and or podcast to influence a
Yeah.
prospect, a potential buyer,
Yeah.
and that buyer decides to buy from you because you've offered more in the presentation, which is, oh, you're on a podcast, or I can see you answer questions, that may sell the difference. It's kind of like the presidential election. You can buy all kinds of media, but they still fly to all these cities and they get in
Yeah.
front of the people and they shake hands and kiss babies. That last shaking of hand may be the deciding vote that gets you elected. And it's the same thing in what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's just nurture tools at the end
Mhm.
of the day. That's all it is. Like if you look at it from the frame of like the content is going to bring the lead. Now, there's certain placements for that, certain strategies for that. Most of the time, that's coupled with an ads format or something like that. But if somebody doesn't have maybe it in their budget to have ad spend behind a certain strategy or whatever, and they have to focus on organic, they just can't get into the mindset of this particular thing is supposed to bring me this person, and then this person is supposed to do this, and then so on and so forth. If they get caught up in that, and it inevitably 9 times out of 10 doesn't work right out of the gate, right? Which is why for me, anybody that works with me, I have a 3-month minimum that you have to sign up for,
Yeah.
because I need to see if what we do together is going to be something that's advantageous for you in the long run. And you can't figure that out inside of 90 days. And I still honestly tell people inside of 6 months, it's still really hard to figure that out. But 90 days is really a kind of a good gauge in understanding of like what the potential could look like. Or inside of 90 days, you could hit gold and
Sure.
figure out that this is the actual thing that you need to be doing.
I would say if you're a very small company and if you're self-employed and you're just starting out, you should spend your money on leads. Literally, like plain old leads. You pay per click. You buy some type of ad somewhere, and then as you build your business up and you want to start building presence and brand, the recognition, the authority, then you need to do this type of thing Evan and I are talking about, and it needs to be part of your daily marketing budget. It just does. Just
Yeah.
like that beautiful website you need to get at some point, and the wrap trucks and the really nice shirts that have logos on it, and the badges for your employees, and the nice offices and all that. In the beginning, you need to start generating revenue. Okay. And maybe you should start doing videos on your own. But
Well,
at some point, right, Evan, you get a certain point, because I know your clients are a certain size that you work with them to
yeah.
make them bigger.
Yeah. No, for sure. And one thing that I will challenge you on kind of what you just said
Mhm.
is that with the advancement of things like editing tools and, having things like our phone in our pockets these days, being able to get, relatively inexpensive lighting equipment or using natural light or whatever, I think that with a solid 8 to 10 hours, the podcast formula or the styling formula that I know that I can give to somebody, literally just hand you,
Yeah.
you can do it in that amount of time, but people aren't willing to give up a Saturday.
Mm.
People, they're just not willing to do that. And that just goes into what they actually want for their business. I think people want the easy route. People want people to do things for them, but they don't want to pay for it most of the time. But I would say that you can, even if you are a 1-person company, solopreneur, you just started, maybe you have one team member, whatever it is, you can sacrifice one Saturday a month and create upwards of 50 pieces of video content through, an 8 to 10 hour session of work. But you just have to be willing to want to learn how to do that.
Hmm.
and be willing to just put in those hours. But most people just simply aren't.
And it makes sense to work with a professional. So the thing about podcasts that I love, it's great when you are on it with someone else and you have dialogue back and
Yeah,
forth.
much easier. Yeah,
And it's not only much easier, but you can look like an authority easier. So if you're
true.
by yourself, let's say you're doing a monologue. I say, "Hi, this is Jim. I'm from Checka Pro, and I do this, this, and this. And we have clients that have achieved this, and I've been in business for this long, and I've got a beautiful wife and kids." Okay, that's great. But it's much better if Evan says, "You've got a beautiful wife and kids." All of a
Right.
sudden, that's more credible because
Yeah,
it's someone else saying it.
100%. No, I totally agree. It's 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 the frame and kind of the perception that creates the the overall ethos of the message
Mm.
that you're trying to get across. And it definitely does help when you have somebody else being able to say that on your behalf because it's just like a testimonial,
It's an endorsement or
right? Like
testimonial.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing. So yeah, no, I would 100% agree with you on that aspect.
Yeah. And what you and I have both learned. And so this is so much fun because, we haven't partnered, but we do a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But, something that you and I have learned and created is this recipe. We
Yeah.
know what goes into the pot to make the great food. I'm not a great cook. If I want really good food, I have my wife do it because she's really good at that. Or I might go to a really high-end restaurant and I expect them to create these masterpieces. And so if you're not a good cook, maybe you should just order out, right?
Yep.
And that's where
100%.
you come in. That's where I come in because we know the right mix of things. And honestly, people are like, "Jim, I'm amazed at what you do." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, it's amazing." I'm like, "It's just what I do." It's kind of like every morning I wake up, I stand, I walk, I eat, and I speak. But it took a long time to learn how to walk, speak
Yeah.
English,
Yeah.
took forever to speak English. And all these things we take for granted because it's just what we do. It's like driving a car. I can drive a car for an hour and really not remember the whole trip because I just do it on autopilot. That's what you and I do, right? This is easy for us.
Right.
And we're constantly studying the latest and greatest. And with the way technology is moving, we really need to stay on top of it, which we do. And I'm not suggesting that the plumber and the HVAC guy learn all this.
No, no. I mean, that takes away from the overall big picture of what they actually want for themselves, right? Um, it's the old what's the adage of it's like buying your time back,
Hmm.
right? Like you get to a certain point, you have to pay for people so you can get that time back to be able to grow and do the things that you want. If you put more things on your plate that end up taking you more time, then like where's the real trade-off there? Just doesn't just not advantageous for what they're doing.
Yeah. So if you're a great chef and you open up a restaurant and 10 years later you're still cleaning the toilets, first of all, there's a couple things wrong with that.
Yep.
Make sure you put the sign up for yourself that says wash your hands before you go back to the kitchen. But you need to hire other chefs or hire someone to run the organization so you can still be the chef, and certainly hire someone at a lower rate to clean the toilets.
Yep.
And if you're trying to do everything, you're not going to be great at anything. And so stick to what you do best and let Evan and I do what we do best. And it's fun talking to someone who gets that
Yeah.
because, a lot of people are like, "Hey, yeah, thanks for the tips. I'm going to go do this myself." And I'll tell you what's really interesting about that. I love this because I'll talk to some contractors, home service guys, and they'll say, "No, no, 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 I can do all this myself," while they're still doing their job, turning wrenches, replacing water heaters, and repiping houses. But what's interesting is, as a customer, if I tell the plumber that I'm going to put in my own water heater, they're like, "You're a fool." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, wait a
Nope.
second. What's the difference?
Yeah.
You're
No,
an expert. I'm an expert. We should stay in our lanes and propel ourselves in our lanes to be the fastest and the safest and the best, and then let someone else from another lane assist."
100%. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. It's also to the mindset side of it of like if you're not willing to like invest in yourself
Mm.
in certain aspects, like how can you expect other people to invest in what it is that you do? So it's kind of like Like me, I have to have a podcast to show that I'm doing it to be able to tell you that I can do it for you. Right. Like, so it's, and the mindset side of things when it comes to, marketing and content and all of these things, what I think is social media has kind of screwed this up for a lot of people. And that is the whole like guarantee thing, whatever. I look at marketing in general. I don't care what channel it is. I don't care if it's content marketing. I don't care if you're doing SEO. I don't care if you're doing pay-per-click ads. I don't care what it is. It's like Russian roulette at the end of the day. Like you can't, the only thing that you can guarantee is that you're going to spend money on a machine that may or may not work. Because there's a lot of pieces that go into it. Your messaging, the portrayal, the even a pay-per-click campaign. If the person putting together the campaign and putting all of the the relevant search terms and the keywords and all of that, like if they don't know what they're doing, then it's not going to work. It's there's no guarantee with marketing, and I think that's what really holds a lot of people back from allowing others to work for them in that regard, because they approach everything from, okay, well, how do I know this is going to work? And everybody that I talk to, I just look them dead in the face and I say, you don't.
Yeah.
Just like you don't know if you're going to wake up tomorrow. So, what's the move that we're making?
Yeah, well, that's true of almost anything. You
Sure.
don't know if it's going to work. But you're familiar with Jim McIngvale in Houston, Mattress Mac.
Yep.
So when you talk to Mac, and by the way, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's got, I think, the number one furniture retail store volume in the country, maybe the world. And anyway, if you were to ask Jim McIngvale, Mattress Mac, he calls himself, which advertising of yours works and which doesn't, he doesn't know for sure. He just keeps doing it, right? So, the moral of the story, if you will, is keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And it all should gel together. So, for instance, if someone's on social media and they keep seeing you pop up with a video, okay, they may not need you at that time. Maybe
Yep.
they hear and or see a podcast. Maybe they never even click on it, but they just see click here to listen or watch.
Sure.
And then one day they need your service. They haven't forgotten about you, but they're not thinking of you. And now they go to Google and they type in, I need a plumber. And they see your name and they're like, I've seen their videos before. That's how it works.
Yeah, and that's the old adage of branding. So it's like you look at it from a professional or personal standpoint. You look at it from the face, or you look at it from the logo, basically, right? And that's because those are quick identifiers. Name sometimes, like you mentioned, like name can be like, I think I've heard that name, but like when you see an image over and
Yep.
over and
Yep.
over and over again, and or a face, right? So yeah, to your point, like being omnipresent like that is going to be the thing that works for you in the long run, but everybody looks at it in such a granular time space that they don't see the return or whatever from there, and then that's what gets all in their head and they're like, oh, this isn't working, we got to do something else. It's the instant gratification of our society right now, and hopefully that kind of takes a turn and changes. I see a lot changing with like those whole like guarantee ads like that we see on social media right now. Like I see a lot of that in 2025 kind of going away, and people being a little bit more transparent on particular aspects of their businesses. But that's just what I foresee in the future, coming from that end of, social media and content and the ads that are run over there.
Yeah. I would suggest keep doing things consistently that you believe are good things. So on a personal level, I've really done a lot of things this past year to make me a better person, physically and mentally. Because if I'm not in good shape, my business won't be, and I can't take care of my wife and my children and so forth. So I make sure I get a certain amount of sleep. I don't eat after 7 p.m. I don't eat before 10 a.m. So I do time restricted eating, and I eat certain foods and I exercise a certain way because I believe that's going to give me longevity and keep me in good shape for that period of time. I don't know for sure though, because if I don't do that, I can't test. I don't have a twin that's willing to do it. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do feel better now by doing that. And I believe I'm going to live a longer, healthier life. You should think of it in those terms
Yeah.
where, yeah, gosh, I can't eat before 10 a.m., but I'm hungry and it's 6 a.m. So keep doing the content, right? Oh, well, I don't want to go to sleep at 10 p.m. and wake up at 6. I want to go to bed at 1 p.m. At 1 a.m. Do the
Hmm.
podcast, right? So
Hmm.
you've got to be tough with yourself. And I'll tell you, most of us are weak.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are. We're
Yeah.
overweight. We don't get good sleep. We're in stressful relationships. We're in debt. And if that rolls over to your business, you're in trouble.
Yeah. There's somebody that I subscribe to, that I love a lot of his stuff, and he talks about, even with the plethora of people and content and whatever, it is much easier now today to stand out and be more successful than the other person because so many people are weak and don't
Mm.
continue with that. It's actually easier now to be exceptional because the bar has been lowered so much that it's much easier than people think, but many people out there don't really understand. You don't see anybody before the glow up, right? You don't see the years of everything that went through. So everybody just thinks like, oh, that's all they had to do, right?
Mhm.
They don't see all the stuff before, but he subscribes to the mantra that, it's much easier today to be exceptional in comparison to your competitor. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's just about the work and the inputs that you want to put into the process.
Yep. You may know this stat. 90% of all podcasts ever produced fail after 3 episodes.
Yep.
90%.
Yep.
None of my clients, I won't let that happen, right? So it's probably like, the gym numbers in January, right? People get excited and
Yeah.
and and they join the gym. But by March, it starts to wane. By July, they're like, are we still paying for this membership? They don't go.
Yeah.
And but if you just stick with the podcast, if you stick with going to the gym, you're going to
Hmm.
beat most people in your field.
Oh
It's
yeah.
that simple. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. Just keep at it and keep at it, and you're a little tortoise.
100%.
But you'll
No, it
get there, right? You don't have to
100%.
win the marathon, just finish it. And
Yep.
most people don't even enter the marathon. How about that? Someone says, I didn't win the marathon. Of course you didn't win the marathon. Um, most people aren't going to win it. But did you finish? Yeah, I finished barely. Do you know that most Americans didn't even think about getting up to do that, and they're not even in condition to? So you're way ahead of most people.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like I said, it's much easier today to be more exceptional. Just got to work at it.
Yeah. On that note, thank you, Evan. I appreciate you coming on today. It's been awesome.
I appreciate you, Jim. Love doing these.
Thanks.
Yep.